Good evening, viewers, and welcome to the virtual edition of Healing Through Conversation with me, Saskia. Tonight we discuss the effect our childhood trauma has on us as adults, and I've invited a very special guest. His name is Graeme Cairns, who's the director of St. George's Home for Girls, and it's a skills center and a safe house for children who have victim to physical, mental, and sexual abuse, as well as kids who have been neglected, abandoned, orphaned, and victim to HIV and AIDS. So Graeme has been working with kids for 15 years now, between the ages of 3 to 18, and he joins us in sharing his vision as well as how we could heal and why it's important to heal our childhood trauma. Let's welcome Graeme Cairns onto the screen.
Hello, Saskia. Thank you so much for
Hi,
having me on the show.
it's an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for being with us.
Good to be here.
How are you doing, firstly?
I'm well, thank you. I have nothing to complain about. I normally say I have nothing to complain about because there's a saying that goes, if you keep complaining, people think you enjoy complaining and they just give you more to complain about.
Yes, I believe that too.
Mm,
Because isn't that just what you're attracting then?
exactly, yeah. So I don't
So,
complain.
I'm so glad to hear that you cracked the code. We all have to crack that code.
So true.
So let's dive into it. Just tell me, or tell us rather, the viewers, what is St. George's Home for Girls and what your purpose is.
Mm. Well, St. George's is a child and youth care center. I know you spoke about a skills center, a child and youth care center. And if you look at years gone by, we spoke of children's homes. We still talk about the children's home. And many years ago, the term orphanage was used. So we're
Mm.
not in orphanage. It's now a child and youth care center where children, as you mentioned, the abandoned or abused kids that were in foster placement get placed there and they receive therapy and other items and other things that help them on that road to healing. So
Yes.
as a child in youth care center, St. George's Home is 158 years old. We're the second oldest children's home in South Africa. So we've got a rich history of caring for the kids of Cape Town. As you also mentioned, we care for girls only between the age of 3 and 18.
Mm.
So any child that would have experienced that kind of trauma or abandonment or abuse, if the case is identified, a social worker would then investigate and then ultimately, as a last resort, she would then be placed in a child and youth care center like St. George's Home.
Got it. And it's quite a interesting career choice for yourself. It's
Yep.
so daunting yet so fruitful at the same time. So why is this your passion?
It's most rewarding. I'll start off by saying
Yes.
I was always involved with youth work many years ago, a Sunday school teacher. I was involved in working with young people. And then a couple of, well, 15 years ago, more than 15 years ago, there happened to be this post that opened up. And I said, no, no, I am going to apply for this post. Somebody also said to me, you better apply.
Oh,
And when I did, I realized that, it's like a that you talk about this full circle because I've always been involved with especially the youth work. Many of the girls used to come to the Emmanuel Church in Weinberg,
mhm.
join the youth group, and I was, without even realizing, interacting that time already with the girls from St. George's Home. And then many years hence, I then got involved with St. George's itself. And that's how this whole thing started. We also, through our church environment, used to have what we called a prayer partner. And we chose one of the girls as a prayer partner, and Lauren was our prayer partner, and we started that relationship, and it blossomed. We had her come around to our place, she and her sisters. So that was even way before I started working at St. George's. So it was something that already was almost natural to do, that kind of progression. When this came up, to say, no, I am definitely wanting to work, it was almost as if it was planned that way. It was destined that way for me to end up here at St.
Yes.
George's Home. Yeah.
It definitely sounds like it. It
Yeah,
sounds like
definitely.
you didn't have to think long and hard about it. It was just so natural, as you said.
Correct. Yeah.
But
Hmm.
it's so interesting to know, obviously, how that journey was for you and how it started, because, as you said, it was natural. It's a natural ability. You always had that, you loved helping, it sounds like it.
Hmm.
And you cared deeply. So, how, in your words, was your childhood like? Because normally, when people have a heart like yours, they've often been through traumatic experiences themselves.
Hmm.
So,
On the
was it like that
contrary,
for you?
no, on the contrary, I would say my childhood wasn't traumatic at all. I
Wow.
had very loving parents, both mom and dad, and I have three sisters, and we had a fairly okay life. It wasn't always where we had everything. My dad was the sole breadwinner. The the one thing that I always remember, that when we came home from school, my mom was always home. And so
Okay.
it wasn't one of those where, oh, I've been through the road and I need to give back because I've experienced that. No, it's mine is more because of the love I have for kids and for children, and wanting to make a
Wow.
difference in their lives. I always remember the story of coming home from school, and then I would have the leftover jungle oats from the morning. My mom would warm it
Mm.
up, and I'll have that after school again. And that was just one
Yeah.
of those loving things that you remembered. My dad every month after at payday would come home with a beasting cake, just because
Oh,
he got paid. So and look,
yes.
we didn't have everything of the best, everything new, but the basics and those things were there. The love was there. I got my hiding on time, that I can tell you. As a boy, you did your little acts and naughty things, but yeah, the discipline
Which
was
is
there.
normal.
That which
It's
is
part of
normal.
life.
Absolutely, I wouldn't have it any other way. So yeah,
Amazing.
that so
That
my life was, the growing up was very nice. I mean, to also into, I would say, good schools, and
mm,
yeah, God has been good.
amazing. Could you say that the love your parents had for you was an example of how you as a child is an example of how you love children right now? Is that linked at all?
Totally, exactly. I think that the the way I was brought up, and wanting our girls especially to experience the father figure firstly at St. George's, because I am seen as the father figure there, the dad, sometimes like the disciplinarian. I get told many a time, "Hey, yo, blesko," or something, because I had to do a disciplining of, because of something. But yes, I love these kids. They are told regularly by both the staff and myself, in all ways, that they are loved. It's important. Like I use the excuse in the mornings when the girls come and they would greet, and I say, "Oh, I just need a hug now. I just feel I need a hug." There's one or two of the girls that I know, they 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 have this lonely thing about them, or you can feel the or sense the hurt that they've experienced. And I mean, some of these girls have been through so much trauma in their little lives that some of us would never even experience through our whole entire life, uh, at what they've already experienced in their young age. So I would just say, "Ach man, I just feel I need a hug." But me knowing that I am giving you the love and the hug that you need, and I just
Wow.
want them to think that they are giving it to me because I need it. And that's just one way of them also feeling that they need it, man. It's so important
Yes.
that they need to know that somebody firstly loves me and somebody needs a hug from me. You know, they need to give that hug. So they also taught in that way to become sensitive and also to give a little bit of themselves to somebody else
Yes.
that needs that love, that attention, that hug.
Wow, that is incredible. That's such a great, I would say, skill to use with
Mm.
any child having to a child that maybe experienced trauma or not. It's
Yes,
just say, just teaching kids that it's okay to be sensitive. It's okay to show love.
yes,
It's normal. Often
it's
kids generally are
exactly.
very lovable, but society is not allowing them to be as lovable as they normally are.
Yeah,
So that's a good way to implement it in homes,
yeah,
with
certainly
toddlers or
it
just kids
is.
in
Yeah.
general.
Mm.
Yes.
You
So,
know, I remember many years ago
mhm,
there was a bumper sticker. Did you hug your child today? And that is so. Kids want to feel that touch, that warmth, just that somebody
yes,
loves me. You know.
yes. And I feel as adults, kids specifically as well, we're always looking for significance. So we want to feel significant. And just
Mm,
knowing that we're doing something special for someone else, even you just saying, I just
mm,
feel like I need a hug today,
yeah,
that actually sparks purpose.
yeah,
I believe that does could spark a sense of purpose and significance within their lives, and so they'll know how to obviously react or respond,
correct.
to others. Yes.
Mm.
So let's go.
And also, yeah, sorry. And as they grow up, also they wouldn't then think twice of hugging their own kids, because many
Yeah.
people grow up with that distance between the parent and the child. Oh, my mother never ever hugged me. I'm not that
Yeah.
warm. So you want to instill a little bit of that warmth in them, that
Mm.
it's okay to hug. It's okay
Yes.
to say, "Come here, let me give you a put my arm around you and let us walk, or hook me in
Mm.
or something."
Wow. Yes, I agree with that completely. Now, you obviously deal with kids that have experienced trauma. For everyone out there, including the viewers, how did you identify the trauma in the child, as well as in, I think that also relates to how others could identify trauma within their children as well.
Mm,
Could you describe that for us?
okay. Yeah, certainly. You know, when children tend to be withdrawn and they're always on the quiet side, keeping away from interacting with others, it's a good sign that you can see there is something not right. Kids tend to be very move away from others and separate themselves because they don't want to seem as if that person is going to be able to see that I'm hurting, or I have been hurt in some process or other, or I don't want to expose myself or someone's going to start to ask me what happened to you or why are you like this. So kids tend to then withdraw, and that's just one good sign. Sometimes children that have experienced lots of trauma have bad dreams and nightmares, bedwetting, and all of that kind of thing. They're unable to concentrate at school. The school results are bad. You're getting the ones and the twos, and you can identify it in many different ways. And it's good. In our case, we have a social worker that works with the kids on a therapeutic level, with counseling, group therapy, individual therapy. So we have the expert able to work with the children. If in some cases where they need a little more than just what we can offer, we refer them again to more professional people, whether it be a psychologist, psychiatrist, or other counselors, even like lay counselors that have experience in the counseling of kids that have been through lots of trauma. So we would in and when we talk about helping with the healing process. It's a holistic thing where we don't think we have all the answers. I mean, there's no ways that I would say even I would be able to take a child through a process and at the end of the day, they healed. Even though I will say that we want to ensure and help children that do come through the doors of St. George's Home, that when they do leave, that they can say they've received the healing, that they can go away. They're more whole than they been or they are since they've been there. And yes, some of the kids do come there with extreme sad stories, and they eventually leave, they go with that weight lifted off their shoulders. They are a lot lighter, because some kids again come there, because they've been taking on the role of mom, looking after their siblings and younger sisters, that they're thinking like an adult already at 9, 10, and 11,
Yes.
and that's not their role. And we want them to realize that they are still children. They need to play. They need to enjoy life. Leave those decisions and actions up to the adults, so that they can
Yes.
enjoy part of the process of learning through playing and being children. Because sometimes kids just miss that because they've been forced into the process of adulthood by what has happened to them. And we want to make sure that they still go through the growth phase of being a child, growing up into adolescence, and so on, and not just automatically from young into adulthood. That's not normal.
Yes, and that's not normal at all. And I think most adults have been through that and have been victim to growing up too quickly and not allowing the inner child to still burn and still be there. And how important would you say is childhood trauma in your own knowledge, like in your own words, in your own knowledge, in your own experience? And this is obviously your personal opinion. What do you think the link between childhood trauma and in our adulthood is? So, sometimes adults as well can react the way kids with trauma are reacting.
Mm,
They may not physically, I would say, physically withhold or withdraw from people. They may not physically do that, but emotionally they could. Most
yeah.
often, as an adult, emotionally, we aren't
Mm,
able, those who are dealing with trauma and haven't healed from it, aren't able to connect with with their partners, with their family. And you always just say, oh, she's just there, or he was just there. But we don't
mm,
know what doors they've actually closed. And
yeah.
I think a lot of parents play that role where they don't always connect with the inner child. So what is the link? And
Mm,
in your own experience and your personal opinion, why do you think it's important that adults
mm.
heal their childhood
Uh,
trauma?
yeah, certainly. I sometimes think that if adults don't go through that process of dealing with the issues and the healing process and learning from that, they tend to behave like children when they're adults. And the tantrums still come out, and because I don't get my way, I'm going to perform and I'm going to act out. the way children do. And if we don't deal with that, we're just going to carry it through to our own children, and we're going to treat our children that way, whether it be abusing our own kids, and then they are going to again carry that through. So that is important, that we, if we are have been hurt in one way or another, there are professional people that can help us through the process of that healing, even if it is someone having to pray with you, someone that can just talk through the the process of what you've been through. Many a times just talking about it is a healing in and itself,
Mm.
because people bottle the things up inside, and when they say when it hits the fan, then everything explodes, then you don't know
Yeah.
where it comes from. So yeah, if we can just, if we know that we've been through some extremely traumatic experiences growing up and it hasn't been dealt with, it's never too late to deal with it even as an adult. But deal with it, yes. I think you have to have some form of professional assistance or help in that process or through that process. But yes, there is help for that kind of issues that people are experiencing, because we just find way too many adults performing and acting like kids,
Yeah.
and throwing the toys out of the cot and performing, and violence as a result of it.
100%. And that's why this conversation is very important. We have a quick question here. What's the best way to deal with that? Adults acting out like children. I
Mm.
think Graeme, you mentioned that
Uh,
the best way
yes.
to deal with it is through professional help.
That would be my suggestion also. If you find and you realize that you do have issues like that, then speak to someone. And there are so many folk out there that can assist, whether it be on a professional level, or lay people that can assist. I think of one or two organizations like FAMSA, or um, the Parent Center. These are all
Yeah.
organizations that work with parents and children dealing with issues.
Yes. Fantastic. I'm actually very familiar with FAMSA. So
Hmm.
they're incredible. The volunteer counselors there
Correct,
are
yes.
amazing. And also, people think generally, obviously, counseling is very expensive, but
Mm.
I've managed to find where I could give donations instead. So
Yeah,
the donations within my range. So that has really
yes,
helped me as well. And obviously, there's volunteers out there that we can reach out to. There's support groups on Facebook as well, where I personally belong to as well. So there are support groups, there are people and adults out there that are really wanting to heal. So I would say start there as well, and definitely research on in
yes.
these support groups how you're reacting and
Yeah.
see if it resonates with you. Um,
Also make
Manipulation is
sure,
a big part of trauma, right?
yeah.
So
Also make
how
sure
adults
that it
act out.
is, yeah, true. Also make sure that it is a reputable organization if you're going to connect with an organization. That you know
Yes,
there is a good track record, you know, maybe of someone that's been through a process like that, and they've been helped. And many folk would easily refer you to, if they can't help you, to another organization
yeah,
that would be able to help, or even if you need more professional assistance in dealing with your
yes.
issues. But there is
Fantastic.
help out there. Mm,
Yes, there definitely is. So tell us the process of finding the children in these unfortunate circumstances.
mm. So what normally happens is, when a child is identified in need of care and protection. So we talk about care and protection because it's either care and protection, or both.
Mm.
So in most cases, a social worker would get involved. Now, the case could easily be identified if someone reported to the police will report it to the organization like the Department of Social Development or Child Welfare,
Mhm.
RCFF or something like that. So then that social worker would identify the case and investigate. They would then
Got it.
determine that that child is in need of care and protection. What
Mhm.
will then happen is a child and youth care center would be sought that has space for the child. The case would then go to the children's court, where the presiding officer or the magistrate will then issue a court order to say that that child would now be placed in the care of the child and youth care center. Um,
Okay.
yeah, the court orders are valid normally for 2 years, after which it is always reviewed. And the reason why only 2 years is because you don't want to place a child in a center up until they turn 18 and there's no review, there's no looking into the case, and there is no
Yes.
looking at the reunification, because we speak of family preservation, family reunification, where we need to look at the process. How can we help the child get her healed and then place her back with the families,
Okay.
or in back in her community of origin, which is extremely important. We don't want children to grow up in a child and youth care center almost indefinitely. They
Yes.
need to be reunified with family. Family still is important and they need to take responsibility for their children also.
Mm. And how? Okay, so you mentioned that you would take them back to their families, and would you? Does the family get counseling as well? Do they? They.
Yes. I'm
Okay.
glad you asked that question, because it's not just we will place them back to with the family. No.
Okay.
Now, most of the cases, they remove from the situation because of the issues there in the family or at home. So they've
Yes.
been removed. So it wouldn't make sense to place the child back there from whence they came and nothing has happened. So the idea is the external social worker or the social worker that works for the child protection organizations should be assisting the family with their healing process. Again, inverted commas,
Okay.
the healing process, or what needs to happen so that the child can eventually come back home again.
Mm.
Sometimes it might be small issues or minor issues, and it just takes a child to grow up a little, become a little more resilient, or just learn basics of dealing with issues, that she could be returned. There's no ways we're going to return a child to an area if a sexual perpetrator is still there. And in a lot of
Yes.
cases, kids that have been sexually assaulted or raped or anything like that, those perpetrators are still in the community. And this is my issue all the time. I would say the poor child gets removed and that person is staying in the community. And that's so unfair.
Extremely
I
unfair.
would love to see legislation where that person gets removed, he or she gets chucked into some other place, and the child stays at home because she did nothing wrong.
Yes.
So
Yes.
yeah, and that's just my personal um, opinion on that matter, because why must the poor child suffer at the end of the day,
Mm.
having to experience trauma and then a secondary trauma to remove her from her family? And that's so sad.
Yes.
And
Wow.
that's what we work on, trying to help and heal. So eventually, when that if the perpetrator and the case gets to court and they found guilty and they go to prison, then we just say well done to the system. But many a time these oaks get off on a technicality, and
Oh,
the child has to stay so much longer in a child and youth care center.
that is terrible to hear that the perpetrator still stays within the community most of the time and they could just get away with it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because wouldn't the child, to a certain extent, which actually leads us to the next question, wouldn't the child feel as if maybe they're done something wrong or they've done something wrong, and because they're being moved around, so the victim, the
Mm,
perpetrator, isn't being moved at all,
mm,
but they have to be moved out in
yeah.
situations like
And
I got hurt
many
and I
a,
have to be removed.
mm, and many a times because of the threat by the perpetrator to say, if you tell anybody I'm going to do this to you, or I'm going to kill your mom, or I'm going to do this, that, and the other, children live in fear. So they don't always report it straight away. And they just
Mm,
tend to get away with a lot. And that poor child is so traumatized that they're not always easily reporting what has happened. And it would
yeah,
take a teacher possibly to identify a child that's gone through something like that because of the behavior change in school maybe,
right.
and then
Mm.
they would report it, and it's identified that way.
And what's the difference between like a child that just has bad grades and a child that has bad grades, and like how do you spot the difference between like a normal, like a child that supposedly grows up in possibly a loving home, and then one that deals with trauma but they both have bad grades? What's the difference?
Mm.
How would you
I don't know
spot
that.
that?
Yeah, many a time a child that has good grades and the grades drop because of the
Oh,
event,
so it has to,
then
okay.
that's the way it gets identified. You can identify to a point something has happened to that child at that point, and that's why the
I
grades have
see.
dropped. Some kids are just ha- learning. They're just harder at learning, so it would take the parents a little more effort to pay attention to the child and help them with the basics. And I always say, sometimes it's just the basics that the children have missed out, but now they just
Yeah,
get moved on to the next grade, and because they don't have the basics or understand the basics, they're never going to understand the stuff a little further on. So we always need to
yeah.
take them back to the basics, and especially with subjects like maths. And it's so
Mm.
important that they do understand the very basics of maths. So we try to get them um, reading. Reading helps apparently, and
Yeah.
understanding. Um, yeah, I'm already jumping to the next question that I know you're going to ask me about how you can help, but we'll get to that
We'll
about
get to that.
helping and.
Yes.
Mm,
Perfect. So how do you manage getting to know these kids? Because like in their eyes you're a stranger that they're
mm,
just meeting. What's your
mm.
process like on having them, of building the trust firstly?
Yeah. Good question. And definitely when children arrive in a child and youth center, they do not trust anybody, let alone because these are a lot of strangers. So again, the trust is built, the trust is earned. So our staff and our child and youth care, our child and youth care workers, we call house moms, they
Mm-hmm.
play a vital role in that process together with the social worker. It's all about building the trust of their children. They must gain your trust to a degree where they are able to share with you and know that they are safe. We need to make them feel safe. So the one of the first things we do is introduce them to everybody, to the staff, to the kids, and of course their room where their bed is, because now they have a bed to themselves. They don't have to share a bed with four kids or six people in one room. this is
Yes.
their bed, that's their cupboard, that's their clothing. That already gives them a sense of, okay, I'm important. I have something of my own. And
Yes.
that already then starts the process of trusting. So also when it comes to having to get them to trust you is like the saying goes, your yes be yes and your no be no. Kids are very good
Yes.
at identifying when you're actually genuine with them or not. And
Mm.
you need to make sure that they feel safe. One thing we also realize when it comes to children that have experienced trauma and kids that have grown up on the streets and so on, what they do is when they have their meals, or you give them anything, they will always save something for later. They try to keep
Oh,
something aside because they don't know whether they're going to have a meal again later. So they try to
yes.
save things.
Yes.
That's one of the ways of identifying also that the children are not feeling totally safe yet. They are not
Okay.
sure of the future by their meals. Give them two biscuits, they will keep one for later. Even though they might be
Mm.
hungry now, but they're going to keep one for later. Their meals, they'll keep something. And it's only after a few months or years that children start really feeling safe and knowing that, okay, I am going to have, there is breakfast, there is lunch, there is supper, and there might be a snack in between, a fruit here, and so on. So
Yes.
then once they've done away with that kind of thing in saving for tomorrow, then they have settled in quite well in the space in which they are at the moment.
Fantastic. That's such a great explanation. And thank you for answering that question. So it gets me to my most exciting question, which is please take us through the case study. What has been your proudest moments?
I would say there's a few I would say that makes me proud, and you may think, ah, that's so simple. When kids come home with a report card and it has sixes and sevens on, even fives, that makes me proud. And we make a big thing about the reports when it comes. Not that we don't try to make the others feel less important, but when you
Okay.
come back with good results, we make big noise about it. I mean,
Yes.
the last exams when they came, I said before the exams, before they started writing, I already told them, for every five I'm going to give you 5 rand, for every six I'm going to give you 7 rand, for every six you're going to get, I mean every seven you're going to get 10 rand. They got
Yes.
excited because that's extra money, that's not just their pocket money and so on. And when we got the results and they got them, the first thing they do is they want to eat the shops and go buy chips or go buy sweets and whatever. But that makes me feel really good when we get good results, because I always tell the girls the least thing that I would like them to have when by the time they leave St. George's home is a matric. If they're staying there for the up until 18 and beyond, the least they must have is a matric result.
Got it.
And because education is extremely important. The one thing I also instill in the children is I say, what greater um, reward can you give someone, and especially your mom, is if you get a good job, you can buy your own home one day, your own house, and you invite your mom to come live with you. I mean, what a great
Wow.
reward that would be for your
Yes.
mom. Then other things that make me proud is, when we get one or two girls in matric and then preparing them for the matric ball, and we get them to someone to provide maybe a dress, and somebody else comes along and we say we can give the car, and there's cake and there's eats, and Oh, you must see the performance that goes on when there's a matric ball happening. Stunning
Yes.
stuff. Not to mention when they still pass. We have someone that passed matric. They make me proud. I've already walked one or two girls down the aisle for getting married. So
Oh my
that makes
word.
me proud to be dad. you,
That
I'm
actually gives me
serious.
goosebumps. You've
It's so
walked such a
lovely.
long journey with them. With at
They,
least one girl, even if it's just one, you've
yep,
walked.
yep,
I can
serious.
understand why you
I've
are
had one,
considered the house dad.
yeah,
It makes
mm,
sense.
yeah. So those are the things that really makes me feel whatever I do, and when I say I mean whatever we do within the center,
Yes.
my staff and all, uh, makes it all worthwhile because we're making a difference in these children's lives. And then one day they can say, I am who I am because of my time I spent at St. George's Home, or the interaction I had with one of my child and youth care workers, or this house mom, or this social worker, or Uncle Graham, as they call me. So
Yes.
I'm only too happy to be there and making a difference in the life of a child, even if it's just that one. There's one story I remember. A One of the girls, as two sisters came there, and they didn't stay long
Mm.
because they were at St. George's because of mom and dad had lost their jobs and things just really went really bad for them. Lost their home. They lived in a little shack, and things were bad. The kids were then
Yes.
asked to go begging and so on. And when the two of them were placed at St. George's, the elder one had a chipped tooth. And because of what we do, and we also have an organization that provides dentistry, and they repaired her tooth. And it wasn't long after that they were reunified with their parents, because their parents made an amazing turnaround. We helped them find work, they got a place, and then the children were placed back with them, back with the parents. And I still
Yes.
say, even if you just came there just for her tooth to be repaired so that she can smile again, then it's all
Mm.
worthwhile. So
Wow.
yeah, there's lots that I could probably cite, that things that makes one
Yeah.
proud to be dad.
Wow, that is incredible. And your team and yourself, you're doing incredible work to walk with these girls in for
Yep.
basically their lifetime. Because I would say
Yeah.
it's during the most important time of your life.
All their formative years. Yes. So beautiful.
Yes.
Mm.
So, Graham, we have a clip to share with the viewers. Let's take a watch.
Okay.
My name is Graeme Cairns and I'm the director at St. George's Home for Girls. Well, St. George's was started by a woman by the name of Mary Arthur, who came from England, and she just seen so many kids running around Cape Town and discovered that many of them were orphaned. And then she started a home in Canterbury Street and Rowland Street, and then bought some property, and that's how St. George's Home was birthed. On the 15th of August 1862, the first child was taken in. The vision of St. George's is to be a loving home to children in need of care. Well, I've been here now almost 12 years, and during the time that I've been here, not any 2 days are the same. The kids are totally different every day, beside having activities that will get them going and get them thinking differently. We're wanting to make sure that they have an opportunity when's coming through the doors of St. George's, being able to be healed in the process, the hurts being healed, and also that they get the best care that they can. Firstly, I think that St. George's provides very good care. I think we are one of the best centers in Cape Town, and I'm not just saying so because I work here. We do, and this is something that I also ensure that our staff give the best possible care to the kids. We want them to, when they leave here, to say that it was good being at St. George's Home for Girls. We want them to know that one day when they are a lot older, that they can say, that was the place where I grew. That was the place that defined my future. That was the place that actually helped me decide where I want to be one day.
My name's Alexis Margaret Ace. I am the social worker at St. George's Home for Girls. I see to every need and every aspect regarding the girls at the home. So basically I deal with statutory work, making sure that their court orders are up to date and dealing with external social workers. I also do individual counselling, group work and community work. I've been working here for 7 months, however it does feel like 7 years. The experience has been amazing and I enjoy every minute of it. I enjoy interacting with the girls, they bring me so much joy, even though we do experience a bit of challenges sometimes, but it's all part of the job. I love the fact that St. George's is very family orientated, so it doesn't feel like a job, it's more of a passion, and when you walk in here, you don't feel like you're coming to work. It feels more like a family, and that's what I like. I do believe in the power of NGOs and the ability to change the community. Reason being is because all of our girls come from different communities and different backgrounds, and we try and enforce positive change so that they can be reunified to go back into those communities and create positive change themselves.
Igama lami nginguNtombazane Lenkohla, ndi-childcare worker, ndiphangela apha eSt. George's Children's Home for Girls. Ndiphangele kule ndawo for 5 years, but ke ndisuka kwezinye i-children's home. Into eyandenza umdla uba ndizophangela kule ndawo kuba ndandiphangela with boys and girls, ukubona indlela imanager yalapha eclose kakhulu kubantwana, so nam ndaba nomdla kakhulu uba ndinga-experience uphangela namantombazana only. So ndithe ndawufika apha ndaclose kakhulu ne-big girls, teenage girls. So kulapho ke bendibafundisa khona how to cook and to wash their clothing and then to teach them xa abantwana xa befikelela kwi-games period time. So it's whereby ke ndihlala nabo ndibabonisa ukuthi iingxaki abazohlangana nazo.
I'm Janet Pipes. I'm a child and youth care worker at St. George's Home for Girls. I've been in the field for 13 years now. The reason why I'm doing this work is because I love what I do. I love working with young people, changing their lifestyles, interacting with them on different levels. And our age ranges from 3 to 18 years, but actually 21 if you count the independent living program that we have at the back. So it's basic life skills that we teach them, how to interact with society when they leave a premises like this.
Fantastic. Oh my word, that video just inspired me so much. It's just like, I don't know if you've ever felt this, but I always want to give more than I can, if that makes sense. Like I always have a desire to do more than I possibly humanly can at this stage. And it's almost, I get so inspired that I just want to run with everything. So thank you so much for sharing that clip with us. It gives us insight as to, everyone that's involved, the team. They're so warm and welcoming. Yeah, how did you get to that point to even get team members like that? What's the process?
No, I think it's also it's an individual thing. If you have the heart to care, the heart to make a change, the heart to give, then it comes easy from people like that. And
Okay.
I will encourage that at all costs, that the staff needs to give their best. They need to be also available to the kids. And no, my staff is amazing. They give of themselves, and sometimes at the expense of their own families, if you think about that. And no,
Yes,
they're amazing.
fantastic. So, how would one start their own home? How do you even begin to start?
Hmm. Yeah, whilst thinking about that kind of a question, there are many child and youth care centers in the greater Cape Town area. And if you're wanting to start something like this, it's a huge undertaking. There's a lot of red I don't want to say red tape, but I mean legal things that you need to understand, and the registration that needs to take place, and so on. I think one of the easiest ways of wanting to care for kids is if you start a cluster foster home. Now that is, if you understand the foster care placement, where someone says, look, I'm prepared to care for a child as a foster parent. Now you have what we call cluster foster homes, where you're able to have a maximum of 6 children within your own home environment. So that doesn't take too much of this whole registration process of a child and youth care center, because a child and youth care center has to have many things in place. I mean, it has to have enough rooms and toilets, and all of that legal processes has to be in place, registered with the Department of Social Development, registered with the non-profit organization, and you must be registered as such. And it's quite a huge task to do that. It's going to take a long while for that to happen also. But if that's your heart and you have premises and you are able to take in kids, then go that route. The Department of Social Development are always looking for, and especially areas out in the country, because within the Cape Town and the Cape Town metropole, there are sufficient child and youth care centers, but there is a bit of a lack out in the outlying areas. So certainly, if you have a desire and you have premises outside of Cape Town itself, and that is a desire of yours, then I would say by all means go for it. Alternatively, if you want to help on a smaller scale, then the cluster foster home is an easier way of going about it.
Fantastic. And obviously, I would suggest, if you can help on a smaller scale, how could we follow your journey, and how can we support you?
Yeah, I would say, and when I speak of our home as St. George's Home, I'm referring to, and I also would include many other child and youth care centers out there. So some of the ways in which you can assist child and youth care centers or children's homes is giving, I always say, your time is always of more value than anything else. Giving up of your time. So how would you do that? The only unfortunate thing at this moment is because of COVID regulations and the limitations that we have at the moment with
Yes.
interacting and visitation and so on. So post COVID, then give some of your time. So we will always ask, if people say, how can I help? Then we would say from the schooling and education perspective, help with tutoring. Now, you don't have to be a
Okay.
maths boffin, or you don't have to be a scientist in order to help. Sometimes it's just helping our younger children, the grade twos, threes, and fours, with their schoolwork, whether it be the geography or the basic maths, to help with tutoring. And I would, in our case, I say you need to at least give me an hour of your time per week, minimum 1 hour per week. Now, again, I'm saying this is post COVID, because at the moment
Yes.
we do have a moratorium on tutoring and helping and visitation and people coming. Um,
Yes. And we
so
actually had
yeah,
that discussion. We had
we
this
did,
discussion
yes,
when COVID hit. I actually used to give children's guided storytelling meditation at St.
correct,
George's
yes, yeah,
Hospitals, and then COVID hit, and I was so
yeah.
sad.
It is. It really hit us hard, because my staff isn't equipped to teach. We are not teachers, and some of the maths that the kids come home with, I say, oh blimey, we just didn't. We struggled.
Yeah.
So yeah, and like you mentioned now, sometimes even just having someone to come read to our younger children, encourage reading, because a lot of our kids, many of them come from homes where parents haven't even taken an interest in their schooling, or in anything that required some time to study, to work, to read, to help with maths and so on. So reading, sometimes I talk about someone might come with some other kind of skills transfers. Like we've had one of our, she's now one of our board members, who did a training session for our older girls on some business skills. Because when the
Wow,
children
that is so
leave,
needed.
yeah, so needed, because they need to understand what's it going to take if I want to start a business. What's it going to take for me to start saving money? How am I going to budget? How am I going to sort out my home? What do I need to do in order to achieve something in life? Buy clothing, buy a car, shopping. So sometimes you need very basic business skills training that we can't
Yes.
always give on a regular basis. So someone comes along, this person might be an expert in accounting, and say, I can offer an hour of my time to help kids with budgeting, or what's a good way of investing little bits of money that they might have. So yes, if it is in skills and skills development, and someone wants to give some of their time, brilliant. Then physical goods, non-perishable food items, good clothing. Now, here people will always say, my children have outgrown their clothing, but it's in still good condition. It is clean, very important.
Very
I'll come back to
important.
that
Yes.
one. And we would
Mm.
like to donate it. Yes, always welcome. However, and when people phone and they say, we've got some clothing we want to donate, and I'll say, yes, as long as it's good, clean, young people's clothing. I remember someone's mother passed away, and they brought the clothes and they said, yeah, you can give this to. Firstly, it was an adult's clothing, and it was an old person's
Yeah.
clothing, and it smelled like old clothing. It wasn't, they didn't even have the
Oh no.
decency to wash the clothes. So I will always
Yeah.
tell people, as long as it's good and clean clothing, don't dump stuff in a black bag and then bring it here and say, oh, we're doing you a favor, here's a bag of
Mm.
clothes. Then we don't want it.
Great perspective.
Sim
Great perspective.
yeah. And similarly with toys, some people clear out their kids' toys because there's one wheel missing on a cart or something. We'll just give it to that children's home down the road. We don't want it. Don't give us broken toys. If it's good,
Yes.
usable, loving toys for the kids, then yes, I would say, I would accept it gladly anytime. But don't bring broken
And
stuff.
yes, because what good are you doing if you're giving your scraps? So how would they
Yeah.
feel? How would the
Yeah,
children
because
feel? They'd see.
some people, and we saw it a lot during COVID because people were at home, so they spent
Yes.
time cleaning. And I just say, don't come dump, man, please, because it would mean that I
Yes.
have to take it. I need to go take it to go dump somewhere again. We don't
And
have
you
the
have to
time for
give with a
that.
full heart. Give
Give
with
it
a
with a good
full
heart.
heart.
There we go. Yes.
Don't come with half hearts, please.
You are
It
so
needs
right.
to be, yeah. And
Mm,
I think that's the lesson that everyone needs to learn is that when you give with good intentions and with a pure heart, that
mm.
is the only time you receive blessings in
Yeah.
return.
You also want to you want the person receiving the stuff to feel good about it, man. We want our
Yes.
children to grow up with dignity and not think, oh, this is all broken stuff with chicken. And now I normally tease the people. I say, look, I don't want broken clothes. The only broken stuff is these fancy jeans that have a rip here and a rip there. Designer jeans, that we'll take. That's the only broken clothes you want.
I love
So
that. I love
yeah.
that.
Mm. Then
And
also
can
on
we?
the other hand, so
Yes,
and
no,
then
you
on
can
the
go
other
ahead.
hand, yeah, people might say, I'm a plumber or mechanic or a a a wooden uh, what do you call them, carpenter, and
Carpenter.
I want to give maybe an hour or two of my time. Sometimes we need an expert like that in the field of whether it be plumbing or carpentry or whatever. But we don't always have the finance to say, okay, we'll just call up a plumber to come repair a tap or the mechanic to tune my car, the car quickly or something, because all of that costs money. And because we an NGO, a non-government organization, we rely a lot on people's generosity, whether it be
Yes.
finance, which is always welcome because we have to pay bills, we have to pay staff, we have to feed. So if someone has that kind of expertise and they're wanting to offer and say, look here, I've got a plumbing company and I could give you once a month if there's a problem, we'll come sort it out free of charge. Now I normally say I would really like it if you can do it for nothing. But if you can't, then next to nothing will do. So yeah, so some people know me already. Don't charge me full price, please, because
Yes.
we are caring for kids, and the expensive stuff is always it costs. It takes a lot out of our budget. And
Yeah.
if someone can come along and save us that kind of a cost, it would be so appreciated. So yes, and again, as I said, finances is always welcome. If people can't give anything else, then our banking details are there. I see. Thank you very much.
Yes. Yes.
Yes,
Put it onto screen right
always
now.
welcome.
And can it be as little as you'd like?
My dear, if you can say I will give 100 rand a month or 50 rand a month, most welcome. We are
Okay.
never going to
Perfect.
say no. It's all appreciated because I believe that every little bit helps. And if we
Yes.
can get, as opposed to, if we can get 1,000 people giving 100 rand a month, it is better that way than getting one person to give you 100,000 rand. Because when
Yeah.
that one person disappears, you're left without that. But if there's one or two people out of that 1,000 that is having a hard time, you're not going to feel it so much. So we want to broaden that donor base. We want to want to have more people giving even smaller amounts, because that helps us so much in the long run.
Fantastic. And that I can definitely relate to that. Like, just give what you can.
Yes,
Um,
certainly.
Graeme, thank you so much for coming onto the show. It's been a pleasure having you, and I hope you had fun. And did you
I
enjoy
did.
yourself?
I did. Thank you very much. You're running a good show. I've
Thank
enjoyed
you.
myself, and I feel that yes, I've been heard, so that
Mm,
people know a little more about what we do. But not only that, part of what you are wanting to achieve is that
yes.
there's healing out there, that you can
Yes.
be healed of the trauma that you've experienced. I mean, I've spoken a lot about St. George's, but yes, there is healing available to each and everyone, never mind what they've been through and where they are in their lives, as long as they're willing to accept the help that is offered and run with it and walk with it, that you can be healed at the end of the day.
Fantastic. I'm in agreement to that. And healing is something that you mentioned earlier on in the show. You mentioned that healing is 360. Did you say
Mm,
that? I think you said that, yes. And
correct.
you said
I said that.
healing is 360. It works in so many ways and it's not just one dimensional. So
Yeah.
part of our healing, it takes probably finding a place that you can be kind towards or be caring towards and do your bit in society, as well as obviously healing your own childhood trauma, which is very,
Mm,
very important. It's been a
mm.
pleasure having you, and I hope to see you again very soon.
Saskia, can I do my last thing?
Yes, you may.
When I leave work in the evenings and I go home and the kids are like in the dining room or something, then I have two little sayings before I leave. I would say, remember, God loves you more than you'll ever know. And then I will also say, don't forget to be awesome. So folk
Amazing.
out there, don't forget to be awesome.
And to add to that, I want to actually add to that, which is something I worked with your kids at the home, which
Mm,
was, we used to say this mantra, which is, there is a light inside of you that is strong,
yes.
powerful, and bright, and you deserve healing. So that's the added
There
bonus.
we go.
Thank you so much. Enjoy your
Thank you,
evening. To
Saskia.
viewers,
You too.
please subscribe. Please comment below. I think it's below.
Mm,
Please comment below. Let us know what you think about the show. Let us know what you want to hear next. Please, I'm sure Graeme wants to also hear the comments and see the, or rather
mm.
see the comments. He wants
Yeah.
to see that. So we want to know if you're really enjoying this. This is a platform for all forms of healing. I encourage healing in every single one of you out there. Thank you so much for joining. Have an awesome night. Bye, Graeme.
Thank you, Saskia. Been great. Thank you. Bless you.
Bye.
Bye bye.